last time I checked, I was a grown-ass woman.
And you're a grown bitch, too.
Goodbye.
Bye, bitch.
Unlike other podcasts, which have like their own studios and, how can I say,
record from home.
Yeah, record from home and stuff. Like, we don't have that facility yet. So we had good Christmas. How about you?
It was really good, yeah. Cozy, small, with a family. The ones who were able to come into the UK.
Most of London's gone into sort of like a tier higher than usual, tier 4.
We were in lockdown for like a month. And then got out of lockdown for 2 weeks. And then we're put straight back into the houses in not a lockdown, but in tier 4.
Yeah, what is the differences between like tier 3, 4, for example, for people that, you know, are not in the UK, for example?
I don't know. Like, the least restrictive one is tier 1, of course, and then it gets tougher as you go higher. And then in tier 4 now, we can go out to the park in 2-degree weather.
But you know, gyms are shut down
Gyms are
again,
shut down.
And the only sort of like shops that are open are sort of like the big supermarket
Yeah,
chains.
and
So,
takeaway places.
so and not all of the takeaway
Not all
places
of
are
them.
open either. It's
Yeah, it's true.
certain ones, I guess, that maybe have like Deliveroo or
Yeah.
Just Eat built in with their
So
companies.
trying to meet up is very difficult, especially when you're living with family. Like, you know, you've got to tell them and be like, yeah, I'm going out. And they're like, where are you going? Out. Do you need to know my every step?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, is like we have to take into consideration our families as well, you know.
It's weird because it kind of feels like we're living in a sci-fi dystopic future in a way. Cause
Yeah.
it's, like at the moment I'm playing Cyberpunk, which came out recently on PlayStation, and there's like large chunks of the game where they go into lockdowns as well, and it's weird, like something which would have felt like a foreign concept maybe 2-3 years ago, and now like
Feels so
our own
real.
lives are sort of emulating that sort of element of sci-fi. I can't quite grasp it really, because there's so many like moments over the last 6 months where the whole kind of like lockdown rules have come from people, you know, taking it seriously to then throwing it out the window.
Yeah, people just don't care anymore.
It's kind of, I don't know, like when it first started, I think everybody, like they took it very seriously. They saw the news and they were like, okay, this could be a big thing.
Yeah.
And then like more news came out over time, first with like the survival rate being something like 99.9 or something
It's
in
now like
certain
19.
certain groups. I mean, obviously
Yes.
elderly people was...
It's more deadly for certain people.
Yeah, so I mean, I could understand mandatory lockdowns for certain age groups or people that are in a vulnerable position, but you know, age groups that
Everybody
seem to be
else?
kind of immune, it's...
Especially the the workforce, which is like 16 to 65,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think so.
Somewhere there. In some countries it's different. But I mean, if you're going to lock down the whole group of people that work, what's going to happen to the economy? Like, my industry is shut.
Which is a sort of like
It's dead.
hospitality, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
then,
practice being a chef right now.
but then I guess you could also extend that to people I know who work in sort of like, what do you want to call it? Where there's clubbing and there's
yeah,
like...
nightclubs are gone.
you know, restaurants or even just cinemas. Like all
Everything.
of the cultural elements of what makes a society are kind of dormant unless they're on social media. I mean,
Yeah.
I know some theatres have tried to, because if you're in a national theatre, you film pretty much everything, but the normal like kind of fringe theatres, unless they're like maybe a Soho, they're not able to put those
Do
shows ahead.
anything,
You know,
yeah.
it's only really that some of the more I don't want to say prestigious because that's
Yeah.
kind of a dirty word
Although-
compared to the others, but they're able to because they film stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of creativity though going on in this time. Remember, we participated in that phone theatre thing.
I think it was called Ghost Caller, where
Yeah.
basically you'd get you'd text this number, and then there'd be this like quick string of well, it must have been predetermined
Yeah, answers
and
yeah.
stuff, and they say, would you want a male to contact you, a woman to contact you, and then after
No,
a while, then
you had to like flip a coin.
yeah, that's it. You
Heads
flip
or
a coin,
tails.
and then
We
you
both got tails, so we
yeah,
got
so we got
contacted
a
by the
woman.
same woman.
Yeah, and then it
And
was like
she-
a pre-recorded monologue
Yeah,
from someone who clearly had died, and it was interesting because it was sort of, I think it was framed in a way that it might be something horror related, and then the more it went on, it wasn't. It was more about people dealing with grief
yeah,
and loneliness, and the idea that once you die, you may actually not be dead. You're in a kind of like a limbo state, observing people.
yeah. But they also, she was asking people to stop dwelling on her being dead, and instead continue living their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is a weird thing to put out at this time because people can't go and live their lives in certain
They
elements. Like,
can't even grieve their dead properly though.
like I saw a video not too long ago where people were at a funeral and, someone was grieving and, two of the family members moved their chairs close to each other.
Yeah.
And then security guard came and said, you've got to move apart.
See,
It's like, well, there's no empathy there. It's like, no, you must move apart, blah, blah, blah.
yeah. Do you know what I found very interesting? I saw something on a thread of my cousin's today, on her Instagram. She was talking about how people were talking about how, why don't humans, especially in America, like a lot of places don't have lockdowns, and then you go to Africa, most places are out of lockdown. If you lock down people in Africa, that's it. You're killing them. You're giving them
much
poverty.
of it's manual labor and
Yeah,
things
our
like that, isn't it?
governments can't, put people on furlough like they do here. Do you know what I mean? Like they can't. So there's no lockdowns anywhere in Africa, and there are restrictions but not lockdown. And so a white woman was talking about how can't people remember what happened with AIDS and how people were talking about all this mysticism with this disease, and they were not listening to scientific fact, and people had to have funerals every week. Okay, why can't we? Did we forget? Why can't we remember that? Why can't we think of that? Now, somebody, an African, replied and said, "Excuse me, stop it. Just because this virus is decimating your economies in the West doesn't mean you should try and lock everybody down, because you guys are far ahead of us economically, right? And Africa's not. However, when it comes to health-related issues, Africa is ahead because they've been a lot of communities have been decimated by Ebola and typhoid fever and all these other weird tropical diseases that don't really affect people in colder climates. It's not doing anything in Africa, Well, in South Africa it is kind of, but that's a bit cold. They've got the sea that meets the ocean that meets the other ocean.
Yeah. But I think it's weird because from what I understand, it's not that dissimilar to a normal flu. In
Apparently
terms of its
so, yeah.
symptoms, because
Severity.
one of my friends, Cyrus, he recently got it, and it's annoying for him as well because he's just had a baby.
Yeah.
And
well, his
long
partner.
Yeah,
has just had a
exactly.
baby.
Okay, well you catch what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So yeah, like they've just had a child, and I don't think he got to spend Christmas with them or his family
That's ridiculous.
because realistically he can't risk the child potentially
and
getting it and his
partner,
girlfriend as
yeah.
well, and then the fam. So I mean, I get a circumstance like that, particularly if you have children and things and whatnot. But I do feel like there should be a choice maybe if particularly when it comes to like work and things like that, because I think us all shutting everything down, eventually the money's going to run out.
Exactly.
You can't just keep
What's going to
printing money,
happen?
and then what? Do we become like a benefit scrounging society where we're so complacent with sitting
Like
at
a
home,
welfare state.
streaming,
Yeah.
and vice versa, which I don't need to even make a case for that because that's pretty much what I do all the time. But,
Currently, anyway.
it's the last 2-3 years realistically for various reasons. But it's weird. Like you guys just caught up with me. Like I went into sort of self-isolation for mental health reasons, come back out, and then the whole world just went to poo-poo.
Shut. Yeah, you're like, oh my God, what happened here?
Yeah, and it's weird as well because I think when the main protests started, initially there was like a protest against the lockdowns, and a lot of media were like, this is ridiculous, they shouldn't be doing this, they're at risk. And then there was the Black Lives Matter protests across the world, and then they didn't seem to mind that movement, for
Yeah.
example, doing that, which is weird because I'm all for protesting and whatever it is,
Like, fight
that
for
you
your
want to
rights.
protest. But for the media to take like oh no, this one's fine.
This one's fine and this one is not.
And most people weren't in the
were not
initial
wearing
stages. They
masks.
weren't wearing masks.
No,
I
they
think in future
weren't.
ones they were, but it's beside the point. When that was happening, I think that woke up a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, so you've got all these people grouped together, but yet you can't go to a football match.
Exactly.
You can't go to a concert.
Although I do understand, like with the football matches, the big spread that happened in Italy was because of a football match in Bergamo, I think, or was it in Milan? And there was a team from Spain that came there for a game, and they all got infected. So I think they have this idea, I don't know if they've proven it, that football matches spread the virus very rapidly. Maybe because of the chanting and the screaming and stuff.
Okay.
But for the theaters and because right now, if you can believe it, churches are open.
Well, but not every place in the world have church.
No, I mean here in
some
the
American states won't.
Here in
open
the UK,
churches.
here in the UK, in Tier 4, you can open churches, which I'm fine with. I'm great.
What about mosques and?
They're all places of worship.
And I'm trying to think what the other synagogues.
Temples and all places of worship are open, but the theaters are not.
Yeah, which is ironic because a lot of theaters, they don't require audience participation.
Exactly. And then church, I went to church not long ago, and we were watching a pre-recorded sermon, but we're sitting in church.
That's
and
weird.
So I'm like, although when there was like worship, there was a lone guitarist singer there.
Well, at least I guess there was something
which is good.
of a live element to.
Yeah, but I mean, why won't they open the theaters then?
But then in Japan as well, because wrestling is still going on in theory, they have reduced audiences, but they're asked to wear face masks, but they can still clap, but they can't cheer.
Okay.
But I guess I don't know how I feel about that either, really.
Yeah,
but it's just weird because I went to Japan this time last year. I was in Japan, in Tokyo, and it was only a fair few people that had the mask thing on. It used to be people used to wear masks because they were ill and they wanted to protect other people from getting what they had. But now it's like, and I saw a video last night, funny enough, about this, where people are being told you have to wear a mask before you come into the store, even though there are lots of research out there that shows that masks don't really do that
anything.
much, particularly if they're cloth masks.
I was looking at my cloth mask. Like, come on, it's not going to do anything. And then also, you're at university and your classes, not everybody in class is wearing a mask, are they?
Well, you can't come into the class without a mask.
But do they wear it in class? Like,
Yes.
you're sitting down?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Like, literally, we have to have either a shield, like, over the face or a mask.
That's
There's
ridiculous,
no in between. So if you're in a 3 and a 4 hour lecture, like the last one I was in, we had a presentation and I had to deliver a presentation
with a
mask on. And then
God.
it's weird because, you have to speak louder than you would normally. So you feel a bit forced than when you're giving notes. And then also people, when you're trying to make jokes to sort of lighten the mood, no one reacts because
everybody's got a mask
everybody's
on.
got
So you
the
don't know if
mask
they're
on.
smiling.
It's really weird and nobody wants to say it or do anything because they're scared of getting something.
Yeah.
And it's weird because one person in the class did end up getting something supposedly, and then
All your classes were cancelled.
Well, no, the class weren't cancelled. The whole people that were in his block who were staying there, they just shut everything down on that area. So none of those people in that area could actually go to
because
classes.
One person presented with.
It's very scary, and I think what's weird is you keep hearing people say, "Oh, 2021 is going to be a better year." I'm not sure it will be because we're in a position whereby if you're living in America now, and we're segueing to the election stuff in a minute, but under a Biden administration, he's already said there's going to be mask mandate lockdowns.
Well, he was a candidate who never properly, campaigned anyway.
No, he was in the basement.
The media campaigned for him.
I mean, I'm off the Trump train a little bit now, to be perfectly honest, after the whole fiasco this week with the £600 stimulus bill, or dollar, should I say, which is an insult really to even put that through Congress with the amount of people the independent businesses have gone now.
Suffering.
There should at least be £2,000 or £3,000.
To be honest, when I watched his speech explaining why he wasn't signing it. And
It all
when
makes
he
sense,
talked
to be
about
fair.
money being taken to count fish in some sea,
And gender
I was
studies in
like,
Pakistan.
yeah, I'm like, what the heck? We're going through this global pandemic, which you guys are saying is, gonna change the world, and we need to reset how we do everything, right? And then you're gonna tell me that you're spending millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, trying to conserve a certain type of fish which you think is going to get extinct. Like, come on, people. Honestly, like, it's the same thing. Like, I love space and space travel. I want to go to Mars and all that stuff. Like, sorry. But at the same time, you have all these things going on right now where they're spending so much money, continually trying to create this constellation in the sky. I know the Indians are trying to do it. Elon Musk is trying to do it. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying that this COVID is going to kill us all, is going to destroy people and all of that stuff, but you're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to put stuff in space? I don't get it. Or to count fish, or to, like, if you're talking about renewable energy, yeah, fine, that's great. I'm all about that kind of stuff. But like, it's like, can we put a pause on that? If you want to put a pause on small businesses, and telling people that, oh, come on, just be in your homes and tell the government to give you money, and then you'll be fine. Like, we're just going to close down for a bit so that everybody can stay safe and hide away. Why are we doing this other stuff?
Do you know, I get where you're coming from with it, but I don't necessarily have a problem with the whole space element, because that always happens.
I generally don't, but I mean
think
right now.
But I don't know, I think it's more that they're giving money to other countries at the minute, where realistically, if that was
Americans
me,
need
if I
it.
was American, I'd be like, well, we're in America right now, and
Yep.
I can understand Mexico maybe, or
Well,
you know,
the African countries which are worse off than Mexico. That's the thing.
yeah, I guess the only reason I mentioned Mexico, because there's the border separating Mexico
yeah,
and America,
true.
but
Mhm.
you know, for Bangladesh and all these other like countries, which I
Which
don't
is so
I
far
don't
removed
know
from America.
why they're doing it, unless they think they're going to create allies there. But
I think it's
a lot of that
yeah.
stuff is irrelevant right now. Like, if you're taking like the whole pandemic seriously, the very first thing you should be thinking about is, okay, when am I going back to work?
Exactly.
Okay, I can't actually afford my house right now.
Yeah.
Like, where's that money coming from? You can't do what AOC says, which is, call up like the what would you call it? The person that owns the house,
The
landlords.
landlord.
You can't call the landlords up and say, I'm not paying it, because they're going to
Yeah.
kick you out in the street, particularly if you're in New York.
There was a hashtag cancel rent
Yeah, I remember that.
trending in New York recently.
Well,
and I was like,
New York
excuse
is.
me,
I feel
if
so
I own a
depressed with
house-
New York.
Oh yeah.
N-
If I own a house and you're renting it, like, freaking pay me or talk to me about like an arrangement. Don't say cancel rent, because
What
a lot
about
of
mortgages? That can't be stopped, can it?
people, I don't think they would.
No.
That's the thing though. They've closed all these businesses, but have they cancelled mortgages? No. Have they paused them? I'm not sure. I think some people have paused, but paused payments and stuff like that.
Well, the one thing I am happy with this US election is that all the people that were, creating the mythical Orange Man monster, the Nazi people who support him, blah,
fascist.
blah, blah. Okay, so you get rid of that person now. Who do you then attack then? Because it seems like...
Oh no, they're attacking Biden now. Now they're investigating the whole
Rega-
laptop
rega-
scandal.
regardless of if they attack Biden or not, who are they actually going to, attack? Like, in the sense that they've built up Trump to such a big level. Even if they go after Biden, it's still not going to be enough, because it seems like, at least to my observing nature, that you've put 4 years into trying to erase the previous result of the election because Trump got in. Okay, that's fine, well and done. But what happens now, in the sense that you've got all of this unevenness? You're talking about you want unity, trucing, but yet you've got people from the Democrats coming out and saying, we like, particularly that woman who recently just got kicked out.
She was calling for armies to rise up.
She lost her place. It was in Detroit, I believe.
Yeah, I hate the fact that she's also she's using the Bible to try and defend her stance and say, people of Christ, rise up against this racism and whatever, make them pay.
Yes.
And I'm like, excuse
Stand
me,
up,
Jesus
like soldiers'
taught,
terms
like,
and stuff. Like,
he was like, forgive your neighbor. You know what I mean? But like,
But
even then,
even
what's
then,
there
you don't need to
What did
forgive
people
anyone. The
didn't-
fact of the matter is a result is a result. It's like similar thing with what's happened now with Brexit.
Oh yeah.
You know, no one's ever going to be happy with the Brexit thing. So
No.
realistically, you should just put the whole thing to bed and be like, okay, it still hasn't technically been put through. It still has to go through
Yeah.
the government for them to sign on and
Like the
stuff.
parliament has to vote, no?
But you know, people going on Twitter and screaming like this isn't my country and stuff. If you, and this is going to sound really rude, and I don't mean it to, but
If this is
if
not
you
your
don't,
country, leave.
yeah, exactly. If you don't love this country, or you like the area you live in, like think on a more narrow
Yeah.
thing.
I
Don't
said
think
it
necessarily
for-
about country. Think about the town you're in.
Yeah, true.
You know,
But you know what is funny? Like, me being an immigrant, okay? Whenever I say, yeah, I'm glad Brexit happened, people get annoyed. And they're like, excuse me? I'm like, look, Australia, I have family who are immigrants in Australia and in Canada. And there's a points-based visa system, immigration system, where you get in with skills. You get in with a degree and masters and work experience. Whereas when it's free for all, in fact, no, in the UK it has never been free for all. For the rest of us who are the Commonwealth, who were under British rule for a very long time and then stopped, obviously, because we got independent. It's been very tough for us to come to our colonial masters. And I say that like, you know, don't say, oh, the country wants to be colonized again. No, what I mean is, where else were people supposed to go look for work? You know, if they were skilled as doctors and lawyers and I don't know, directors or whatever, to the UK. And then, you know, the EU took over and people were coming from the EU. And I love my European friends. I have a lot of them there in Europe and stuff. I have family. And, but people were coming to the UK with no skills at all. And they were getting jobs. And to be honest, British owners of pubs and all these other places would rather hire people from Europe because they're cheaper. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And then Brits do lose out because they're asking for proper pay. But no, they'll pay foreigners cheaper salaries. So that's the thing, is like right now, Brexit is good for the British people, guys. Everybody who's fighting against Brexit, to be honest, most of them are either immigrants who benefit a lot from not needing to have the skills to work here, right? Or, I don't know, people who are just like, yeah, globalization and everything. Globalization is good when it comes to certain things, but in other areas, it hurts the nation, you know? And
well, I'm not a fan of globalization. I'm just on the sense that if I want to go to, say, Costa Rica, I want to experience Costa Rica the way the people that live there like.
You don't want to go to Costa Rica and
or if I go to South Korea, I want to experience South Korea. I don't want to go to South Korea and have McDonald's. You know,
there we go.
I know that McDonald's is there if I want it, but realistically, I go for the culture. I go for the you know, not so much like tradition, but some people do. You know,
Yeah.
I would go for my own particular reasons, like film culture and things like I'd love to walk down the streets of where Oldboy was filmed and Lady Vengeance and all these things, just because I'm a bit of a film fan. But you know, at the same time, like I can understand to a certain extent why some people believe it's a good thing in the sense of you can transfer things from one country to the next and blah blah blah. But you know, at the same time, I would have loved to. I can only go for what I know, and from what I know, like I've seen like the last 2-3 weeks anyway, like I've been going through YouTube just looking for archive footage and things, and it's very interesting when you go onto like old clips of like the 60s in London, like central London, around the time of like Monty Python and Jimi Hendrix, things like this, and you read the comment sections and you get this overwhelming sense of sadness from people. Now, I don't know if it's done as like satire, not the video, but the comments, or if it's actually a genuine sadness of the British people who feel like the culture's been completely bastardized and raped. I mean, I love...
Those are strong words, though.
Well, that's what I'm summarizing from messages where they're like, there's no acid attacks here, no, like back in the 60s, or, you know, there's this, there's that. But it's not like the kind of things which you'd hear reoccurred on the Steve McQueen television series, which we may talk about in this episode or the next one. But when you look at like that, like you get the sense that if you lived in the 70s, if a white man saw a black guy, the first thing he thought of was wog.
Yeah.
You know, and that's wrong.
Like, that's so wrong.
Because if you only have to look at like the punk movement and like bands like the Specials and you know, whites and blacks were coming together. I mean, there's a massive fucking concert. I think it was punk against fascism. It was something like that name, and they had all these big names like the Clash and everyone playing.
Yeah.
That was in the heyday of the so-called National Front and all those racist organizations. Not every white person was racist. Not every black person was racist. So, you know, it's like, it's not like we can't keep looking in this revisionist standpoint of, you know, if you were marginalized back then, everybody hated you. I'm not saying it didn't happen, because there are 100% proof that things like that does happen, but we can't just paint with a broad brush.
There's a lot of stories of integration that are very hidden, I would say, like on both sides. So, for example, there are racist people who don't want the fact that to own up to the fact that black people did own, you know, businesses back then, and you know, they were successful and all that stuff, and they were not actually trying to steal people's jobs as a lot of them think. But at the same time, I do get where you're coming from, where it's like, okay, it was an easier time back then when you think of how simple life was, how integrated society was. Like, I feel like the media these days are the ones who are causing people to be divided. Do you know what I mean? It's like they keep reminding, it's like a constant reminder of, hey, you are different from that other person, and this is what that person did to you. And it's the funniest thing, because the majority of people I see anyway that are telling us that, oh, people are racist, are white people.
It's mostly white people or people that have been hired in a role of diversity.
Officers.
Yeah, who have never ever complained before until now. So like there's a lady with the BBC. I'm pretty sure she used to just be like a normal presenter. Yeah. And then I think on Boxing Day there was this huge uproar on, again, this is why Twitter is AIDS. Like, not only is there humongous double standards in terms of tech censorship, particularly towards people that say don't agree with Democratic parties or Labour or things like this, there is also this just amount of cycles of abuse, like things where like it's okay supposedly to call a white person gammon, but if someone was to flip it on their cord and call someone an M-word or something, then, you know, they're immediately taken off the platform, they're cancelled, people
that happened
get
on
doxxed.
Facebook recently, actually, when somebody was trying to insult you and said, and called you gammon.
Yeah, because I think
like,
it was because again, like recently...
that's ridiculous.
Elliot Page, what was her name before?
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page changed. And I'm not discrediting that she may feel like that's what she wants to do and stuff.
But you were just giving an opinion.
But let's just be honest. If you're a white woman, which I'm not, if you were a white woman, and most white women are Karens anyway, but if let's just say you're a white woman, you've got the feminist card that you can play at any time, right? You're going from
and
that
supposed white privilege.
Yeah, so you're going from that to becoming a white cis man.
Who are hated.
Who are hated or ridiculed in society, who...
There's a whole man-hating
it's weird.
Like,
I'm not just saying it because I'm white, because I don't really look at my colour. I never have looked at my colour as a defining element, because if you were to do like an X-ray on me and you look underneath me, there is nothing white inside of me outside of pie and mash and occasional, things my nan cooks, like stew and dumplings. If you go past all that, my musical taste is largely influenced by black culture.
Yeah, true. You look you look Turkish Italian.
When I go into kebab shops, people come up to me when I'm ordering a kebab, and they're talking in Turkish. Like, I don't know what you mean, boss. Sorry, boss. I have something like that monologue in True Romance where the Sicilians were spawned by because there's definitely some truth to that Quentin Tarantino monologue, definitely. Because you only have to look at the passion that Italians have and the passion that black people have for their culture and things like this, and the food, specifically the food, the food. So I could list 100 other things like flipping Levi Roots, for example.
Yes.
You know, and
But
you
to
can
the
buy that
point
stuff there.
Was we're talking about how white men are the most hated person. And then, you know, it was just a comment to say, okay, well and good, she's
Well, it was satire.
transitioning.
It was a joke.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was a
like saying,
joke.
why would you go from a woman to
But
be a
then
white
you
cis
got,
man?
yeah, exactly. And you got attacked.
Multiple
And
times.
called gammon.
And it's like I say, I like gammon. I like
Somebody
eating the
said,
gammon with
This is the
pineapple.
problem with cis white men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're married to a cis white man. So you get what I mean, though? It's like there's this weird double standard. There's this, I don't know where this man hating comes from. Honestly,
I think it's been manufactured, to be honest.
It's
I think,
been manufactured.
like, I'm trying to think, like, when I was younger, if this thing existed. Like,
Because
not the word
it's the
cis.
same thing with black men, to be honest. Black men are also hated. Let's not lie.
From a women's standpoint, they are.
Yeah, from a women's standpoint,
100%. Women, like, you know, like, shackle them down quickly. Like,
especially a lot of black women.
Yeah.
They want to put down
yeah,
black
at any
men.
time.
It is so wrong. And I feel like they're trying to demasculate men.
Well, look at the Small
anyway.
Axe episode, where literally, you know, you've got that young guy who's studying to sort of, you know, better his culture, and his mixed race wife is just literally insulting him
Putting
every
him
single
down
time,
at
purely
every
because
turn.
he's more further forward in his career than
Yeah,
hers.
she is.
You know, and it's
That's
like, who is
true.
this audience for?
That was
you
the
know?
episode Mangrove.
Yeah, we might
that
as
was
well
the
just
first
talk about
one.
it in this episode now, to be perfectly
Okay,
honest.
we were gonna talk about this in the second episode, but yeah, we tried to watch Small Axe. We tried.
I will finish Mangrove just because I don't like to not finish things, but
yeah, and have a full opinion on it when it's done.
do you want to give your thoughts first, or do you want me to go into?
I could not sit there and just listen to what felt like a history lecture. Look, I know what they're trying to do. I know they're trying to talk about, you know, trying to depict what happened. It's a legit story, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. You didn't like 12 Years a Slave. I liked it because for me, it felt like, okay, I was watching a film telling the story, a real story of this man who was forced into slavery after he was a free man. You know what I mean? So I felt like it was good. And I was not a filmmaker, so the performances for me were good. I know your opinions on it. And then you come and watch. I expected Small Axe to be great, honestly, because it's Steve McQueen. And the cinematography is great. The sound is great. The costumes are great. Like, all of that is great. The acting, I'm not sure of, because it felt forced for me. And the dialogue was just very forceful. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it was a lecture on how racist white cops are. That was for me. And yeah, we could argue that it was based in truth. But I mean, this is supposed to be a film, which is fictionized a little bit.
Well, compare it to Babylon.
Oh, Babylon was great.
And the only reason I mention
Babylon was
Babylon
great.
is because Mangrove and Babylon are linked in a very weird way, in the sense that Mangrove, the incident of Mangrove, was actually documented by the same director who made Babylon. Yeah.
Do you know, a lot of my friends liked Mangrove, honestly. But the funniest thing is, a lot of my friends are white. So in my opinion, could it be this whole issue of white guilt that is being pushed into people's heads? Because I'll ask a friend for an opinion on something, and literally they'll say, well, I don't have an opinion on that because I'm white and I can't really relate. And I'm like, how many times have we spoken about many different topics when we're not, you know, we can't relate to them? We can't. We talk about doctor stuff all the time, but we can't relate to being a doctor, do we? Medical stuff. But I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
Well, McQueen's, for me, like, from a cis white man perspective, is a sellout.
I like
at
how
this
you
point.
said that.
is a sellout at this point, and it's I can't believe I want to say that because I'm one of his hugest fans.
Yeah.
To give some context to this, there are two phases to McQueen's career. There's the first element of his career where he's a video artist. He does very experimental stuff where he's been trained in, I think it was the Royal Academy of Art and Goldsmiths and places like that. And the thing that worked so well with the things I've seen from that time period, his colour is irrelevant to his work.
Yeah.
He is merely an artist.
An artist.
And then,
A
you know, he makes
wonderful
Hunger,
director.
which is an interesting kind of calling card movie. It's a very bold film in the sense that he starts to introduce certain things that become trademarks to him as a director. For example, long takes. There's an incredible long take scene with Michael Fassbender playing as Bobby Sands.
He used to use Michael Fassbender.
I think
a
something
lot.
may have happened there. I'm not sure, but like,
He's in like 3 or 4 films of his,
yeah.
no?
So it's kind of like, you know, there's an 11-minute take of like a long like interaction between him and a prison warden sort of thing, and it goes on for quite some time on one angle. There's other moments where like there's a massive like riot, which is very similar to what happens in Mangrove in the sense of the way it's filmed. Difference was in this one, it was all done in again long one take sort of situation, and then after like the riot has happened, that you see this cleaner like wiping down the blood and the piss and the shit that's happened over the course of that fight in long takes. And again, he really
like you see his artistry.
manages to create something artistic and haunting in a new way. And then you see, for me, his best film, Shame, which he epitomizes that balance between a narrative movie and being an artist at the same time. And that for me is a heartbreaking film. I remember seeing it in the cinema and feeling like I had been smashed in the head with a sledgehammer, as did all the audience too, because when the credits
that's
came,
a powerful statement.
when the credits came, people were stumbling out of their seats. There was no talking, there was no nothing. It was literally like,
it was like a haunting film.
like, you know, really like devastating film. And it's one of the only films which I could say is a masterpiece in every element of it. It's why it's in my top 10 of all time. So you would think for me, I would love whatever McQueen does. I should be shilling for him as a fanboy.
You should be, actually.
But then I jumped off the bandwagon at 12 Years a Slave because there was 2 things that I noticed in 12 Years a Slave that was a huge like right turn. It felt like it was done by committee compared to McQueen's previous films. And
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is when I think about Hunger and Shame, they're very raw. They're very rough around the edges, like in the sense that if you were to look at and analyze Hunger, it's the breaking down of the human soul.
Human spirit, yeah.
And then the second one is the breaking down of the body in the case of Shame, because it's about sex addiction. And you can argue the third one is very similar to Shame in the sense that it is about breaking of both of those things together but then this time it's more from a racial element. But the problem with 12 Years a Slave for me is that the whole woke culture started at that point. When that film came out, everybody's like, if you don't like it, you're racist. It's the very first time. It's the very first time I'd ever heard that said about a film.
Like something,
and then it was like, this has to win because, you know, it's an important film and stuff.
It didn't actually win,
It did win. It won a lot of
I can't
awards.
remember.
But the fact of the matter is that whole Oscars too white thing, it all stems from the
that
12
time.
Years a Slave period. And the movie itself, I've always thought was flawed. I remember sitting in the Stratford Picture House and people were laughing at scenes in the movie
that were not meant to be
laughed. So, for example, when Chiwetel beats up one of the slave owner's sons before he gets hung on the tree for a long period of time, the audience were laughing at the fact that he beat the dude up. And realistically, that shows how disconnected the audiences were, because
they didn't get it.
It's not just they didn't get it, it's clearly badly directed, because you shouldn't necessarily be laughing or engaging in that emotion when you know that this man was a free man and then blah, blah, blah. Then the second element that I found super distracting was it never felt like 12 years. It felt like 12 weeks. He never aged. He looked the same in every fucking scene.
His hair did get a little whiter. Just a little bit. He did look the same.
Like little white hair there, yeah. I've seen wrestlers that have that white hair at the beginning of the match, and then at the end it's gone. The fact of the matter is, it never felt like 12 years.
Yeah.
You know, it was a ponderous movie in which...
It was quite a long film, though.
Hang on a minute. It was a ponderous movie that Brad Pitt, the white saviour, had to come in and stop the blacks to get freedom and vice versa, save them, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
It was so flawed on so many levels. And it's weird because he has fundamentally the same team from Shame cross over to 12 Years a Slave.
Really?
And
But then...
it really, I don't know. And I never watched Widows because I'd seen the original television series and it's fundamentally just a product of its time. I don't need to see an urbanization of an old ITV TV series for it to be any good.
That's what they're doing these days, though.
Well, yeah, we'll get onto that another day. But with small acts, like the only thing I can commend Steve McQueen for is Mangrove was always meant to be a feature film, from what I understand. It was been in development for many years,
though, isn't it?
and that's why it's I think nearly 2 hours long or whatever.
It is.
The only thing I can really give it like a huge positive thing is that McQueen has now opened the door for a new generation to be put on screen, in the sense that sci-fi fans have Black Mirror. Again, if I think of a more closer one, people that are into sort of horror, we had Masters of Horror and things like this, but we now have small acts, which clearly going to get second or third season. A lot of
they're like 5 episodes, aren't they?
I think so. I can't remember, but the fact is now that has been created to give platforms to newer stories. Now I look forward to watching Lovers Rock. I heard Lovers Rock is the film of the year,
best one,
which Sight and Sound have said, and out of
we
all
will
of
talk
them,
about it in
out of all of
another
them, that is the
episode.
one I probably feel like
Could be.
the one that I'd probably connect with more, because Lovers Rock is a very interesting time period, and particularly with like the reggae movement, it's a softer side of reggae.
I haven't read about it. What is it? What is
Well, it's
it
just a
about?
love story basically between two people, from what I understand, and it's all set to that music.
All of his stories based on like black people.
Yeah, I think it's specific because Small Axe is the symbol that used to be on the Bob Marley records.
I
think it's
see.
the record
Okay.
label. So
See, I didn't know that,
and
and I don't
there's-
think a lot of people know
and
that.
there's a lot of, if you even listen to the music in the background of Mangrove, there's a lot of old school reggae songs playing all the way through the show. I just felt like it didn't ever get off its feet, that show. Like, it has a really great performance from Sean, the guy who used to be in the Lock Stock TV show and Human Traffic. It's nice to see him back in like the forefront of film, because I think he's a great talent.
Right?
She was okay. I think
It wasn't her greatest performance for me.
well, she was okay. Like, I think she was better in the first Top Boy, but that's just my opinion. But the main issue I have with the show is that the dialogue felt so unnatural. It felt like
Very
someone
unnatural.
was talking from a third person perspective
was
rather
like a
than living through
lecture.
it. It didn't feel like anybody was living through the situations. And if you actually take your own enjoyment out of the show for a few moments and look at the actual structure of the film, it's a terrible film, because it is literally copy and paste the same scene.
Yeah.
Because all that happens once you catch a rhythm
It's
of
like
it
a
is
repetition.
the white cops fuck with this dude for no reason.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's the premise.
And then he insults them and talks about it.
But I don't even know if you really insulted them
No,
at the
I mean,
beginning.
not to his face.
But either way, right? The copper fucks with this new business. Okay, so that's the premise. Then literally every other scene after that is raid. They've took this guy and put him into the cell, and then you've got these women like hysterically shouting in the sort of like the holding cells, of which if that happened, they'd all be in the cells.
they'd always be in the
Like the whole thing is unrealistic, and what's even more insulting is McQueen. And I don't care anything really about like the monarchy, to be perfectly honest. It's not really my cup of tea.
Excuse
but
me.
I know some people do, and that's fine.
People love our queen.
But at the same, I'm not dissing the Queen. I'm just dissing the whole system.
I get what you mean.
But the fact that McQueen has to, and it's not even subtle. Like, all of the coppers are all institutionally racist, and in every scene that they're in,
which is unrealistic. To
but
be honest.
wait, this is the killer point. All right, every single scene in the police stations have Queen Elizabeth in the background.
Yeah, there's an image of her in every
which is
one of
weird,
them.
because I'm pretty sure McQueen has been knighted.
Yeah, he is Sir.
So it's like
Sir Steve McQueen.
Like, I get why an artist would do that and say fuck you to them and stuff, but a part of me is just like, wow, you're now the mainstream.
Yeah, the camera was actually zooming in on, like, whenever they showed a situation in the precinct, the camera would zoom in on the Queen's image.
Yeah.
That was very odd. I didn't understand it.
I think that's what he's getting at. It's basically saying that the UK has always been racist.
And it stems from there, like it's deep down.
It's been passed down from generation to generation. But that's what's so unrealistic with that show, because there's not one white cop that actually goes, this is wrong.
Yeah, who's redeemable.
And it's like I mentioned, the guy that is in that role as the main cop, he came off like a James Bond villain. He was so over the top. There wasn't don't get me wrong, I'm all for nasty, reprehensible characters. Look at Bad Lieutenant by Abel Ferrara.
That's a good film.
That character is morally bankrupt from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's almost unredeemable until the last 5 minutes. And yet, the way it's handled, there's lots of should he do this? Should he not do this? There's a lot of conflict with that character.
His character, nothing.
He has
at
nothing
all.
there. He's just, he's racist.
And then also, you don't even see any reason, any
There's
trigger
no
for
motivation.
him. No motivation. That's the word I'm looking for.
But then there may be in the later scenes, but from what I understand, the rest of the show is the court case.
Oh, wow.
So
I don't know. I feel like if this film maybe started with a proper... Because they keep referencing a time when the guy, played by Sean something, had another club or whatever.
Sean Parks, I think.
Yeah. He had another club that this guy tried to destroy. I feel like if they showed that, they talked about it 2 or 3 times. And then you're confused. You're sitting there like, oh, okay, so he's been troubling him for a while, and he's opened a legit business, which is not actually legit. And people...
No, that business is legit.
No, but people were doing stuff in there.
No, there wasn't.
Really?
There wasn't.
It looked like it.
No, he was rolling a
Oh,
cigarette.
the people wanted
No, he was rolling a
to bring
cigarette.
stuff, and he said no.
Yeah, it was a legit business.
Yeah. I've always had my problems with politics in general. I was in politics and I left it. Because
And yet
people
you're
are
doing
lies,
this show.
And I'm doing this show. But we don't always talk about politics. We talk about films and...
Most time it's politics.
Very controversial stuff. Anyway.
That's why it doesn't get views.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a platform for us to speak our minds. Anyway, a friend of mine recently cancelled me. So she sent me a message and she's like, we can't be friends anymore because you have spoken up about supporting a misogynist, a racist, and a bigot. And I'm like, and she basically insinuated that I'm all of those things because I said yes to pro-life. And I'm like, what? So I don't know. I'm like, listen, that's my personal choice, my personal view. If you want to cancel me for that, that's stupid because I'm not canceling you because you disagree with me. And so it comes down to the tiny little things. It's like that guy is never going to do anything for my life. None of these politicians are ever going to do anything for my life.
It's all a game.
It's all the game. So
it's all a game for
that's
likes
the thing.
and
it's
shares.
Come on, guys.
But this is the thing. Funny enough that we're kind of making a documentary on at the moment because it's the project's called Excluded, and it's very much about this notion that people who have certain opinions
get excluded
that may not be
families.
mainstream, or or might just be simply they're just questioning their own faith, their own belief systems and stuff. And then and I don't know, but from my perspective, I've always said this on and off camera. I think the last 5 years we've become more divided in the sense that we can't even accept differences of opinion. It's like, okay, you must think this, or that's it. We don't have friendships.
It's like people look different. There's this whole thing of diversity, like, oh, let's be diverse. Like TV shows are so diverse now. It's great. Questionable. But at the same time, it's like...
Why is it questionable?
Oh, many reasons. We tackle that in the second episode, actually. So, but in general, I'm saying we all look different and we accept everybody from every country, which is great. Let's do that because I love every culture. I'm a traveler and I love getting to know people and how they think, not necessarily to change them. I always say, pick and choose what you will from different cultures and then embrace it as your own. It's not appropriation. It's not. So if we talk about this whole appropriation thing, are you telling me that white people who practice Buddhism are appropriating the culture? No, that's their chosen faith. You know what I mean? So it's stupid when people talk about appropriation. I don't believe in appropriation. Anyway, I'm going to get attacked by certain people for that. But my point is, though, which I lost. My point.
What is your point?
I lost it.
What is the final thought for you on this episode?
I completely lost it.
Oh, okay. Well...
Oh, yeah. There's no diversity of thought. It's like, guys, we should allow the diversity of thought. That's how our world came to be, because people challenged each other. You know what I mean? Like the current, like everything we have now is like, if somebody wants to build a skyscraper or whatever, they're gonna have arguments like, oh no, let's use this type of steel, and oh no, let's use this other one, and then you find a solution because you have diversity of thought. If you all thought the same, the world would go to shit.
But the world is currently a shit.
That's true.
So that's the question I want you guys to come away with today.
Yeah.
Like, is the world shit, or are we losing the ability to simply exchange ideas? Or
We are losing it. We've lost it.
but that's your opinion. I'm asking the audience here. Okay. So yeah, please let us know in the comment section and stuff. And
Guys, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay?
cool.
Yeah. And Instagram, Twitter. At HeBlackSheWhite.
And do you want to censor me anymore, or
What?
are you going to censor or talk over me anymore?
Who, me? No.
Anyway, that's me signing off with my white privilege. How about you? What are you signing off with?
I don't know.
You got to give me something better than that.
I am not a feminist. I am just a black person who loves life.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, great. That's
Oh, God.
that one done, yeah? You want to cut it? Or you want to... yeah, we can cut it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, cut it.